I don't think that buying and selling Bitcoin will be an industry in 10 to 15 years. I'm a lot more interested in helping people use Bitcoin in self-custody. I founded, and I'm still the CEO of Bitcoin Well, a non-custodial Bitcoin platform. Our mission statement is just simply enable independence. We are a freedom-focused company. You cannot leave funds on our platform. I do believe that my kids will grow up in a world where they can just have a Bitcoin Well account. They will not need a bank account. They'll be able to send wire transfers and buy a house and do all the things that they need to do with the fiat world. Banks are losing customers because they will not let their customers do what they want with their money. Bitcoin comes along and completely disrupts their entire being and their entire business. We no longer need to gamble our savings, our value, our futures in order to just simply survive, because we've got money that actually does the work in preserving the value. Bitcoin fixes a lot of things.
Absolutely. Almost everything.
Almost everything, man.
Adam, welcome to the Bitcoin Infinity Show. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, welcome, Adam. Since we haven't had you on the show before, could you start off by giving our listeners a little TLDR on Adam O'Brien and what you do? What is the Bitcoin Well, and how did you end up?
I'm Adam O'Brien. I founded and I'm still the CEO of Bitcoin Well. I've been doing that since 2013, so quite a while here. I live in Alberta. Personally, I've got a wife and 4 kids, so we're we're right in the thick of it. But it's been pretty fun. We've been able to travel. Like, just got back from El Salvador, went to adopting Bitcoin. We brought 3 of the 4 kids. The small one is just he's just too much right now on the airplane. So we left him behind with grandma, brought the kids to do the Bitcoin thing. We're a family of Bitcoiners, man. We really, really understand, or at least I think we do. I'm sure in 5 years, I'll look back and think, wow, I didn't know a thing, just like I always do. But we understand the importance of generational, wealth and freedom, and why that's so important. We're raising our kids in a home that values that kind of stuff. And it's an exciting ride. So that's there's the 100,000-foot view of Adam. Bitcoin Well is a non-custodial Bitcoin platform. We're actually on a mission. So our mission statement is just simply enable independence. We are a freedom-focused company. You cannot leave funds on our platform. This is, I think, the number one most important thing for Bitcoin platforms is for broker and custodian to be split at minimum, and at best, obviously, for the end user, the beneficial owner of the Bitcoin needs to have full custody. And it's definitely been. There's ups and downs to this business, to this industry, but certainly running a non-custodial version of this business is tricky. But we're loving it. We're doing it. It's forcing us to think differently and be smarter. And I think that the consumer benefits as a result.
So you called it a platform. What is that? Is that like an exchange, or what is the thing?
I have eradicated the word exchange from my vocabulary when talking about Bitcoin Well, because we are not a place where, like, an exchange implies that the place you log in does not own the Bitcoin. It's simply a middleman in between 2 trading parties, 2 exchanging parties, if you will. Bitcoin Well is direct to consumer. When you buy Bitcoin at Bitcoin Well, it comes out of our inventory. You're not trading with the guy on the other side. There's no bid and ask. There's just simply a buy price and a sell price. And Bitcoin Well is the counterparty in all of those scenarios. This is part of what needs to happen in a non-custodial business, because you can't leave funds in the platform. It'd be very difficult to be an exchange with no one leaving any funds on the platform. And then platform even further than that. I'm actually not very interested in solely buying and selling Bitcoin. I don't think that buying and selling Bitcoin will be an industry in 10 to 15 years. I'm a lot more interested in helping people use Bitcoin in self-custody. And so, our mission statement, as I said, is to enable independence. And we do that by making Bitcoin and self-custody easy to use. Kind of like the convenience of modern banking with the benefits of Bitcoin. So benefits of Bitcoin, you can hold it and control it yourself. you've got full access. You can go anywhere in the world. It's all good. But benefits of modern but convenience of modern banking, like tap your phone to pay for things, pay bills online. And so like we developed a platform, or part of the platform is being able to pay your bills in Bitcoin. So I have my Amex card, which I go around tapping, to buy, like, went to the tire store to get a new hitch and like whatever, buy a coffee. There's no chance these chains are going to be sending Bitcoin anytime soon. And so we tap the Amex card, and then at the end of the month, I just pay the bill with Bitcoin, and off we go. I get to hold my Bitcoin in self-custody. I'm not exposed to the horrific Canadian banking system. Not that they want me. And yeah, that's it. So when I say platform, so much more than just buy and sell. In fact, in the States, I'm just rambling on, so feel free to cut me off anytime, but I feel like I'm going to talk forever here. Buckle up, listener. We're in for it. We're developing right now a direct deposit function. So you'll be able to send your paycheck or your stimulus check or whatever directly to Bitcoin Well. And then you can automate a portion of that going to self-custody, and then a portion of that, and then the rest going back to your bank. But of course, the next step is you can automate a portion of that to self-custody, and then you can have your mortgage or your car payment or whatever withdrawn automatically from that Bitcoin Well account. And then, of course, the third step is just have all of it go to self-custody, and then, pay your bills with Bitcoin from self-custody. And so that's really where we're trying to push. The quote that keeps coming to mind is, be the change that you want the world to see or to be, or whatever the quote is, be the change. And I do not want my kids to have the same exposure to the legacy financial system that our generation does. And so we need a platform that enables people to live on Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's how our new book starts. The Bitcoin, the Inverse of Clown World, starts with a very, very tacky Michael Jackson quote. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make a change.
Wow, I love
Man
that.
in the Mirror. Yes, and there's a profound truth there, even though it sounds, you
know what? It's cliche and it's whatever, but how few people actually do it. We were chatting last night with some friends, and it's like, we're talking about, we're going through a book together, kind of like part of a Bible study. And I kind of made the comment like, look, nothing was revolutionary in this chapter for the last few weeks, but it's a good reminder that we have to take action. And like, I know how to have a 4% BMI and a six pack with a shirt that is just like fitting just perfect. But guess what? I'm not disciplined enough to do that. And it's such a key kind of component, I feel like, to knowing what to do is really only like 10%. The other 90 is actually getting it done and doing it.
Yeah, but never judge a book by its cover. You don't have to have a perfect abs to be fit. You can be mentally fit.
That's right. I like that. That's what I'm in there. The mental juggernaut.
Yeah, no, but I mean, Michael Jackson himself, he changed. He changed from black man to white woman, but maybe that's not what he intended, like the song lyric to be. But each to his own, I guess.
Or her.
Or her. Yeah, whatever. I guess I think we've abandoned wokeism at this point, haven't we? Like, I feel like the world has just ditched that whole thing. That was a bad idea.
Dude,
let's go next thing.
It feels like it became cool to be conservative. It became cool again. You can see it in the culture. I've noticed this shift over the last, probably started about 12 months ago. And then, certainly over the election, like, I don't know how many celebrities came out anti-woke over the last, 6 months. And that is just game changing. People are no longer afraid of cancel culture. And I feel like this is just, this is the purest form of a free market, kind of like swinging back and forth. And eventually the path gets found.
Yeah, there's a lot of it sounds like you've read our book already, because this also feels like it came out like a month or two too late, because it's addressing the problems that were there like 6 months ago, but maybe but then again, the pendulum you mentioned, that's another chapter of the book. Like, it swings back and forth, and I don't think like the other side of any political aisle is necessarily the answer. The answer is not to like turn the wheel to another spoke of the wheel. It's to break the wheel, as
Yes, yes,
Daenerys
exactly.
Targaryen said. Like, if we want to destroy the whole fucking thing and throw politics out the window completely,
Yes,
that's
get
the end
rid
game,
of
right?
the politicians.
Yeah, screw those bastards. Like,
The
what have they ever done for us?
well, this is
Except
it,
the
and it's
aqueduct and the roads and peace. Yeah, yeah.
well, it's like, first of all, they're not doing a very good job of that here in Canada, anyways. So I don't, but there's this. I've had this kind of theory about how do we get to mass Bitcoin adoption? When does it come? And the right naturally, I think, adopted Bitcoin simply because it was the left in power. Like, we have been getting more and more progressive or left for the last, as long as I can remember. And so it feels like naturally freedom money goes to the quote unquote oppressed. Now, I don't want to, I'll use that word very loosely and lightly. Let's, be sensitive. But at the same time, moving the pendulum, so we're moving now all the way to the right, it seems, which is great, which means the left will eventually be oppressed. They will go through the same things that us Bitcoiners have been going through with the financial banishment and the state calling you or making up lies about you and whatever. And then they too will realize, oh, hey, Bitcoin is nonpartisan. Bitcoin is something that I can benefit from within my ideology. It'll probably change that ideology quite a bit because Bitcoin changes you and kind of forces you to think more and not just, act on emotion, but it will still, it will still be there as a freedom tool. And then that at that point, I think, is when we get to this hyper Bitcoinized spot when both sides of the aisle have realized that is in fact the aisle that is the problem.
Yeah.
and we can, Bitcoin is like the bridge between the aisle to actually getting society, getting humanity into this spot that is better. And I'm
it's the bridge ashore from the bridge to the lifeboat rather than between the aisles. It's away from both sides of the aisle.
Yes. Yes,
so
exactly.
Let me pick your brain on one thing. You mentioned like mass adoption. So here's a slightly unpopular opinion. And I think it's more important for all the money to adopt Bitcoin than for all the people to adopt Bitcoin. And the reason I say that is that the more wealth that is held in actual self-custody, as opposed to ETFs and all this other fiat world nonsense, transitory things from the legacy system to hyper Bitcoinization. I think the more people that are actually self-sovereign and have a lot of Bitcoin in self-custody there are, the more powerful we become as a political force in ourselves. Like, that's where we can really start influencing regulators and lawmakers and such, like and really pay ourselves out of trouble, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. If you got enough money, you can stay out of trouble. You can pay for your own fucking defense system. Like,
yes.
Yeah, and I realize I swear a lot here, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So what do you mean exactly by all the, like, what's the difference between the money and the people?
So I don't view Bitcoin as being for everybody, but for anybody. Like, Bitcoin is for anybody because not everyone is suitable or capable of taking care of their own shit. Like, there's a lot of people that sort of need a provider, and that could be anything from your senile mom to your kids to whoever else in your family needs your support. What I'm sure of is that the supportive head of the family is a more suitable provider of that stuff than the state. Yeah. What we've done today is that we've outsourced all the responsibility to the state, so everyone becomes a victim because it's profitable to be a victim. Like, everyone becomes a beneficiary instead of a provider, and I think that's like the real thing to fix here, to get away from that, so that inherently responsible people can start taking some damn responsibility for their own lives and their own happiness, like and their families, because it's the freedom responsibility coin. So yeah, that's what I mean by the money getting into Bitcoin, is that the more influence you have over other people, so like the more which is sort of equivalent to how much wealth you have, because you can use that wealth to buy stuff, and by doing that you sort of vote with your wallet on what gets promoted in the market. So I think it's more important for someone like Elon Musk to become orange pilled than your average truck driver, Gord, the truck driver in Canada. Like, so, and this might be a somewhat controversial take, but I'd just like to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're probably onto it with that it's for anybody, not everybody. But I think that it employs kind of a natural growth and or natural selection behind who does or who can adopt it. I think that eventually, if you cannot adopt a Bitcoin standard, you're kind of toast. If you can't figure out how to self-custody, you will inevitably become a slave. But I think that the incentive to learn Bitcoin is so great that 1 to 2 generations and you will be in fantastic, like I think it's adopt or die. And I think that you're probably correct. As far as who's more important, it's hard to say. I think that, what's better, the smart man with, the smart man who can gain nothing, or the hungry man who has everything to gain. And it's an interesting kind of thought exercise where, I look back at my life and who I've worked with, and sometimes the smartest isn't always the best choice. They're not always going to have your back. It's definitely the one that is hungriest with the aligned incentives that's going to be best for whatever I needed best to be. And so I feel like, certainly Elon getting orange pilled would be positive. He's got a big influence and lots of other people. But I wonder if that actually hurts because people just do what Elon says. They don't actually go down the orange pill rabbit hole.
No, and this is so interesting because the same is true for like this question of what would you prefer, a pro-Bitcoin politician or an anti-Bitcoin politician? Because there are two sides to that coin, right? Like if you let a politician dictate whether you can or cannot run a node, you're sort of missing the point. The point is that I'm running the node because fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. That's the reason. Like, and you don't really get there if it's not permissionless, if it's permissioned.
Totally. And but the other side to that is like this pro Bitcoin stuff. I feel like we as Bitcoiners have moved very, very quickly to just LARPing for the state. And it is worrisome to me. I share these same convictions and these same worries. I think it inevitably doesn't matter. I think that what the release that's happening right now universally is Bitcoiners being told they were wrong for so long, being told they were foolish for so long. And now what you're suggesting, the Elon Musks of the world are like, oh, these guys had it right the whole time. And we're like, for some reason, all of a sudden, the validation that we apparently didn't care about and the pat on the back that I thought didn't care about is very, very important to us. And we're like, more. And it's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad because I hate to see Bitcoiners sucking up to politicians, and and I understand the appeal of Trump, like because he's in many ways the opposite of a politician. Like his rhetoric is like the opposite of what a quote unquote normal politician would say, and I can see why people like that. It's the rebellion of the thing. But just the other day he tweeted something like, Bitcoin's over 100K dollars.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. And what he doesn't realize is, like, Donald, you're welcome.
Yeah.
You're in debt to us, not the other way around. Like, Bitcoin helped you more than you helped it. Sure, there's a bull market and everything, but the fundamentals are still the same. And it's you're going to be the dinosaur. Like, you're the one facing the asteroid here. The asteroid doesn't care that you think that you made the asteroid stronger or weaker. Like, the asteroid is still coming for you, and you're still a dinosaur. Like, so
100%. Well, yeah. I mean, probably, like, to be fair, in the short term, like, it certainly lines up that the pro Bitcoin administration is giving Wall Street the courage or whatever to enter the market. But I don't think Bitcoin needed that. I think the price of Bitcoin probably needed that in the short term. But I think on the macro, like, my kids in 2078, the price of Bitcoin doesn't care who the president was in 2025. Like, it's a non-issue for Bitcoin on the long term. So on the micro, probably if Kamala gets in, Bitcoin dumps because, like, she's a communist that hates freedom. And so freedom money doesn't do well under that administration on the micro. That said, I think the three of us, and I'll speak for you guys, then you can tell me where I went wrong, is the short-term price is less important to me probably than it's ever been, because I'm so focused on building responsible children and heirs that can take the torch, so to speak. And frankly, the higher the price of Bitcoin goes, probably the more difficult that's going to be to, like, teach that responsibility, and the more discipline that will be required. And so, I think that, Trump taking credit is horribly un-Bitcoin. It's horribly, shows, and I watched both him and RFK in Nashville. Trump has no idea what he's talking about. He's reading a script that someone semi-knowledgeable wrote for him. He's got no clue. RFK, though, he has it. RFK is fully in the trenches. He is with us. He understands he understands the protocol and the importance of it. And that's cool to see. But I think largely irrelevant to the macro.
No, yeah, I totally agree. And but for all the Trump tweet, don't get me wrong, I still appreciate the trolly nature of his character. Like that he sees an opportunity to troll someone, and he just grabs it, regardless of what people are going to think about him. And
it's
that's
unprecedented.
The appeal, right? Yeah, unprecedented.
Nice.
Yeah. No. So it's still very funny, but yeah, and I totally agree. This is for the long run and everything. The way I look at it is like, this thing is going to play out in one way or another, and we're living in the timeline that we do. We can't really alter what happens. We can alter it. Maybe we can influence our friends here and there, and we can do this and that. But on a grander scale, all we can do is just sit back and enjoy the show and grab the popcorn and see that, like, and that's the way to tackle this. Just relax, keep on hodling, stay humble, stack those sats if you can, or just sit there and don't overspend or anything stupid like that. Don't fall into any luxury traps. Just enjoy the ride. It's a great show. It's the greatest show on earth.
Well, it's that, but it also inherently teaches us to stop this guise of investing, of gambling in order to preserve purchasing power. Bitcoin really incentivizes us to go provide value. The only way you get to stack sats is by providing value to someone or some other group of people. That's the only way you get to do it. And Bitcoin is just a tool to preserve that value. And so, like, speaking about what are we supposed to do right now, it's like sit back, watch the ride, and figure out how to provide value. build your business, build your skills, build your value creation mechanisms so that you have the ability to go out, and it doesn't matter. Bitcoin at 100K or Bitcoin at 100 million is completely irrelevant, because you want to provide value in the future and lock that value for an even further future. And I think that that's the holy grail. And so as humanity, if we're just focused on how do we provide the most value, I think the world's going to look pretty sweet.
Yeah, and it's there's a flip side to that. The only way to get anything out of value back for your sats is to actually spend them. Like you
Yes.
can't, you can't play the fiat games and leverage the fact that you have more than others and get cheaper loans and stuff. That doesn't work at all as well on Bitcoin as it does on fiat.
Totally. So, I see all these LARPs on X talking like, I never sell Bitcoin. And I always respond, oh, that's fine. You just aren't all in yet. And they're like, oh, I'm a maxi. I'm all in. What are you talking about? It's like, well, if you don't spend Bitcoin, I mean, you're eating.
Yeah, how do you survive? Yeah.
Yeah. You have a house, I assume. Like, you drive a car, you go have a coffee, you have shoes on your feet. How do you buy that? Well, I use my fiat. It's like, oh yeah, so you have fiat. So you're not all in. That's fine. You just aren't all in. Like, cool it with this, like, I am so good because I am maxi. I never sell. Diamond hands. It's like, no, that's not how money works. Money works in such a way where you provide value, you receive money, some unit of account, and then you spend less than that, and the future of you benefits for the delta. And it's like, be all in and spend sats. It's what you have to do.
Spend and replace, right?
Yeah, spend and replace. Like, or even just work and then spend. Like, work and then spend.
Yeah, but that is replacing.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. It's like it's kind of like what's the replaces is a future tense. What's the previous tense? It's just spending. Like, it's like, if you work and make one widget and you can live on 0.5, then you do a good thing. That's great. You get to save 0.5 of your value. And that's remarkable. So I think it's like it's a consumption versus production kind of formula that the world just needs to completely unlearn the old formula and now relearn the Bitcoin formula, which is it's a culture shift across the planet. Like, it is insane. Going from a credit system to a money system is astronomical.
No, it's absolutely insane, because you literally have to unlearn everything you've learned about commerce and money and finance and all of it.
Totally.
Because like in a hyper Bitcoinized world, it's not gold. It's way more resistant to inflation than gold. Because but the more miners that come online, the more gold is produced per time unit. Not true for Bitcoin. It stays the same. The issuance rate stays the same, and we're almost there. We're almost mined all the Bitcoins. And like the last coin will take like 40 years to find.
I know that that blew my mind when I heard that something like in 20 years the block reward will be like, what is it, 30,000 sats or something?
Yeah. It's like 92% the first 12 years, and then 5% the next 12 years, and then that's it. The last 3%, that's the other 100 years or 120 years.
Like, I struggle. Look, I guess I can kind of see their point around, like, gold bugs struggling to get in here. They have a hard time detaching the physicality from the digital realm.
Mm-hmm.
But the digital nature is actually the only reason Bitcoin can work, because you're able to actually amass value without your costs rising. Storing $100 million of gold is very, very difficult. Difficult to spend, difficult to move. The physical restraints of previous versions of money have been impossible to overcome. And now, I mean, the fact that you can carry around generational wealth on an SD card is pretty insane.
Are you aware of the idea of element zero?
No, I don't think so.
This is an idea I heard from a great Bitcoiner called Jörg Hermsdorf. So I had to, like, when I saw it, like, he gave a presentation about it, but it's kind of nerdy presentation. It's a German guy, so has got this German accent and speaks in a very engineering way. So I thought that this has to go into my book. So it went into the Everything Divided book, and I rewrote it and tried to make it more like entertaining. I don't know if I succeeded or not, but we made a little video out of it called Element Zero. So if you Google Bitcoin Element Zero, there's an animation by a guy called Yoni Appelberg, and yeah, it's about how the you can view Bitcoin as a new element on the periodic table, but it differs from all other elements because it doesn't have protons or neutrons, only electrons. So it's an element completely without mass, which means that it's made up entirely out of information, but it behaves like an element in the sense that you can't destroy it very easily without massive amounts of energy, and you can't create more of it without massive amounts of energy. Or you can't create it out of thin air. But in all other senses, it sort of behaves like an element. But since it's made up of information only, the information about the element is the element. There's no distinction between the information about it and it. So, which is, and as you know, like knowing the secret, knowing a private key to that unlocks a certain amount of satoshis, is those satoshis. They're the one and the same. The satoshis don't really exist. They're not the satoshis. The ability to move the satoshis is never online. It's only it is only and can only be within a human mind somewhere. It's always someone keeping a secret from someone else. And the only reason that we think that this secret is worth something is because we know the improbability of someone else guessing the secret correctly. So we know that
I like that.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's just information. It's just a goddamn number, or it's just 12 goddamn
binary
words.
too.
Yeah, it's binary too. It's just flip flop flip flop flip 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 flop flip 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 flop flop flip flip flop flip flop. That's a Bitcoin private key, and you can throw a dice 99 times or flip a coin 256 times, and you have a Bitcoin address that you can send Bitcoin to.
Like, I don't know if I have any on my desk, but we just made these little.
You did?
We calling them entropy pouches.
Yeah.
And it's a little tiny pouch which has, and it comes with 50 tiny dice. I didn't think 100 would fit, but it will. We say roll it 3 times, like roll the dice 3 times, but we're gonna just add 100 in, and then you just get all your entropy in one roll.
Yeah.
And it is super. It is it is so empowering to think that you can literally do, as you say, roll a dice 100 times and have entropy for generations.
Hang on a minute. Are there 16-sided die?
Yeah. So there are.
There's the T20 and the T12. I know those, and the T10 and the T4 and the T6 and the T8. But is there a T16?
I'm pretty sure there is. I saw one in El Salvador at the Bitcoin hardware store. There's a die, and I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure it is 16-sided, but it's all zeros and ones. Have you seen that?
I've seen all zeros and ones, but like that. The reason I'm saying 16-sided is, of course, hexadecimal. So it would be like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 A, B, T up to F.
Okay. No, I don't. I've never
seen
one
of those. So you could actually roll it like how many letters are there? Like how many digits? That's like 30 or something. So you could actually roll a 16-sided die 30 times. Am I doing the math right here? Who's good with maths? No, okay.
I don't know. You've definitely lost me. I just like the little 6-sided die that you roll 100 times. That seems the most obvious one to do. But it is cool for 2 things coming to mind there. One, the fact that we can just do that offline with something that my 4-year-old plays with is pretty sick. But then the other one is the fact that you can do it multiple different ways to achieve, a different result in the same way. It's like, it's not just dice. It's not just numbers. It can be numbers and letters, and it just all we need
words.
is randomness. All we need is entropy and randomness in order to preserve our value, and that's such an empowering. I know that's more of a cryptography thing than a money thing, and that's the basis of cryptography, primarily for information. But Satoshi's genius to look at money as information, it is truly something that we don't talk about enough. We don't marvel in the fact that perspective shift changed the course of history.
No, I talk about this all the time because, like, I think it's such an underrated aspect of it. It is the aspect that is like that changes everything, because what it means that these things are only stored in people's heads is that we are our Bitcoins, and I can't get that thought out of my head. I can't, like, this thing lives within us. We are it, and it is us. And whoever's connected to it, whoever owns some, is the other Bitcoiner's brother or sister, whether you want to be or not, because you're part of the same body now. You're part of the same organism. You are incentivized to help the other Bitcoiner. You can't get away from that. Like, if you don't, you lose. Like, and if you do, if I help you, Adam, with anything, I benefit.
Yes.
and it will be like this forever. But only those who have realized it see it. And once you see that, like, Bitcoin is what do we call it? It's like truth goggles and a mirror at the same time. So it's a way to view the world through a lens and a mirror at the same time. So it's like a mirror is a lens, but anyway, you can view yourself through it, and you can view the rest of the world through it, and you can see that, like, you are truly connected to every other Bitcoiner, like in a flesh and blood sense, forever, and it changes everything.
This concept is the fact that money has ever not been that way, frankly, is a bit offensive, because money is but a tool. You know, people are probably going to listen to you and normally would say, "Oh, you know, this is blasphemous. This is not it. You know, you are not Bitcoin. Bitcoin is money and whatever." But when we think about, well, what is money? Well, money holds value. And then how do you get value? Well, you spend your time producing value with your hands, your efforts, and your brain, and then you receive something to represent the time that you've spent, the value that you've created with your time. And so if you think about, you know, if you agree that time equals value, value equals money, then you can just remove value. Time equals money. And the human spending their time is going to trade it for money, which means the money is simply a reflection of us as human beings. When we spend our time in order to earn money, we are frankly trading time for money, which again means the money is just simply a representation of our time. And when you have something else blowing that up, you've given someone else domain over your time.
Yeah, and you're giving up your time for someone. You let other people kill your time.
Yes, you're a slave.
It was for you to kill all the time. You're letting others steal it while it was for you to kill. And the thing is, like, the time equals value. You can I don't really buy that, but what I do buy is that money gives you a way of evaluating how well you spend your time. So the market, a pure market signal, which you can only find with Bitcoin, is telling you that if you're spending your time in a good way or not. Mm-hmm. So, like, if you're making more sats by doing the things you do, you should be happy about yourself. That was time well spent.
Yes.
But not necessarily that. Just if you can live within your means, if you have more purchasing power tomorrow than today, then you're fine. Yes. Forever. Like, and if that means, you know, you stacked way back, and now you're just sitting there spending more time with your family, well, good on you. Well earned. Like, it's telling you if you're playing this thing right or not. And
Yeah,
that
it's a litmus
that
test.
depends on how the rest of the world is doing. So like
Absolutely.
if there's a disaster, then everyone needs to chip in, because you can't just sit on your ass and let your purchasing power increase, because that won't work in that scenario. But it does
Exactly.
work in a scenario where everyone is working for everyone else. And with Bitcoin is just telling us what should have been obvious all along, that we're better off cooperating than aggressing against one another.
Yes,
Because that's the
totally.
only thing we took out of the equation, is the aggression. You can't steal it, you can't make more of it, you can't steal, you can't aggress, you can't violate someone else's property.
Well, it's the
Therefore,
aggression,
everything is good.
and I feel like we are, yeah, Bitcoin forces you to obey the Cobra effect, as you will, and it aligns incentives in the way that you have described. We've got now a monetary system where unilaterally everyone has the opportunity to participate, but to your point, not everyone can or will do it equally. And so it creates this, it's like, I'm not going to worry about fighting everybody else. I'm going to work internally. I'm going to work on myself so that I'm able to produce more, so that I can get a bigger piece of the pie. This is a pure form of meritocracy. This is meritocratical money. This is the holy grail of aligned incentives, rather than, where we are today. We just did a video on corporatocracy, which is a newer term that I had not heard of, which is basically, large corporations effectively being an arm of the government, an arm of the state. The state is going to put pressure on and then reward those that respond. And when it becomes more efficient to lobby the state than to do R&D and market your business, you can see a decline in society,
It's
because
obvious.
you're no longer providing the most amount of people value. You're providing those with the most power value. And Bitcoin completely flips that script, which, again, makes me super bullish on the future.
No, the opposite of quality is not inequality. It's equality. Right. Yeah.
Right. 100%.
So, yeah, you said something intrigued me there. The Cobra effect. What is that?
So the Cobra effect stems back. And actually, it's funny. I say this as if it's fact. I don't think there's documented record of this, but let's just assume that there is, and we'll take it as fact. But the thesis holds true either way. When the British government took over India in the 1600s, there was a Cobra problem. The nation of India was overrun with cobras. It was eating like children and citizens. And the British government said, we can't have this. We must kill the cobras. And they put a bounty out on the head of a cobra, so that any individual could go out, find a cobra, kill the cobra, take its head back to the government and say, here you go. And they would get a wage of some sort, which on the surface sounds very, very good. But like every artificial force entering into a natural environment, there are secondary and tertiary consequences. So what happened? Well, people started breeding cobras. So they would capture them, they would not kill them, and they would breed them. And then, over the course of this breeding time, they would bring in 10 cobras, all for the state to give them 10 wages. And now the state has a choice. We can, the cobras are still going down. The cobras are contained. There's less cobra accidents per capita, but we're getting taken advantage of. Of course, the monarchy hates being taken advantage of. So away with this cobra wage. And what do you think the farmers did with all of their cobras? Well, out they go into the wild. Why would I farm cobras? Why would I kill a cobra when I'm no longer getting paid to do so? And so, in effect, after whatever the amount of time was, the cobra problem got infinitely worse. And there was now more cobras in the wild, killing more citizens after this unnatural force came in with, frankly, the best intentions. Sometimes I do believe the state is evil in a lot of ways, but I don't believe that everything they do has malintent. They just are ignoring. Have to. Exactly. They're just ignoring the Cobra effect. They're ignoring physics that, I can have all the happy intent in the world, jumping off a cliff and flapping my arms. I'm just going to tumble. Physics doesn't work that way. And the same way, the British government had all the positive vibes, they messed up. You cannot put unnatural forces in.
This is, I believe this story to be true. I've heard it many times before. I don't have no reason to doubt its truthfulness. Nice. I mean, you see it everywhere. The thing is that politicians don't realize is that you get what you pay for, but they don't understand what they're paying for. Yes. So if you're paying in non-productive people, then you get non-productivity. That's what you're paying for, and that's what you're gonna get. And if you pay for people to be sick, then you get sick people. People have the incentive to be sick. If you pay pensions, you get old people.
And they no longer want to produce.
You get people that no longer work. Like this is like so I think that's the key. Like and that's why politicians are so ill fit for their jobs, because they are themselves not incentivized to understand what they're paying for, because they don't have to care, because they're paying other people with other people's money.
Yes, so they know disincentivized. Yeah. Not only are they not incentivized, they are disincentivized. Yeah. Their life gets worse if they adopt sound money, based principles, and that's a problem. That's a big problem.
Yeah, and it's but I find it so fascinating. We keep falling for the same thing over and over again, and that human beings like that. It's like this constant struggle between. I look at it between barbarism and civilization, or between fang and claw and free market competition, because I think they're diametrical opposites. Like they are. Either we do things by collaborating, or we do like. There are two ways of finding the correct owner for a thing, a good or a service or whatever, or a piece of land. And that is either you find it out on the market or you fight for it. And so there's a civilized way to do things and a barbaric way of doing things. And Bitcoin cannot do the barbaric thing. It can only do the civilized thing. So yeah.
What do you think? And so why do you think it is that so many people don't understand that? Because what you're saying makes 100% sense to me. It seems very logical.
Yeah, because I think that we are so used, hundreds and hundreds of generations of fraudulent money. Like this is not, it's not anything new. And like even on a gold standard, gold isn't absolutely finite or absolutely scarce.
Look at China recently. You see that? They just found
they found
tunnel full of gold.
Yeah. So and all of a sudden these things are found, but like we've lived with this inherent lie in the way we conduct our business since forever. So I think it's, and making money, especially making money fast, and has always been to a greater or lesser extent at someone else's expense. And the fact that it doesn't have to be at all ever is very hard for people to get into their heads, because everyone thinks that that is not possible. Just every person on earth getting richer without anyone losing. Like it's a very hard thing to imagine.
Do you think it will? I actually don't think we will have every person on earth getting richer. Let's assume Bitcoin is this is it now. We've got Bitcoin. I feel like it just stabilizes everything, and the value just transfers to the most valuable individuals.
Okay, I slightly differ here. I think we can have richer all the time for everyone. If we truly get hyper Bitcoinized, I do think the purchasing power goes up forever, because every new good or service that is put into the Bitcoin economy makes it bigger and makes the pie bigger for everyone in it. And I think that that's a process that never stops. What does change, though, is people's behavior. Because when you have money that will grow in value over time forever, you will defer from spending. Like you will you're not incentivized to spend as much anymore. You're incentivized to be careful with what you use your Bitcoins for, or your Satoshis for. So I think in the end, like, we'll be helping each other out a lot more, and only spend sats like a few times per life, maybe,
Wow.
for really big things to move things around, and the rest will just be somewhat of a utopian. We can all help one another, get along, value for value, good stuff happening everywhere.
Like barter system, you figure.
Not really barter, because like money is important for economic calculation, but we can do that. Like, we don't really need, like, if we have trust in the base layer of society, then if you could trust other people, you wouldn't need proof of work or any of this decentralization
Right.
bullshit. You could just like have a ginormous spreadsheet for everyone on Earth and just trust someone with it. And that doesn't work. That's the system we have now, and it's always been abused. Like,
Yeah.
so, but it would be way more convenient, because we wouldn't need all this node running and stuff, and resource consuming stuff. Now, unfortunately, we do, but the irony of that is that I think that at some point, this is deep stuff, and way ahead in the future. But I think if we have a base layer of trust, like there is no second best, but the second best is your reputational capital. It's like how trustworthy you are. That's how you get ahead in the Bitcoin economy. If you've shown to be trustworthy over a long time, then why wouldn't people trust you? And if they trust you, you don't really need money. You can just keep a tab on the other guy and have that tab forever. That's sort of what the Lightning Network is, by the way, in a sense. But it's more trustless. But still, I think all these other things will develop over time that we can't even envision now, because we're so entrenched in the fiat world and how that works. But on a Bitcoin standard, where you have this base layer of all society, or like all of civilizational base layer of don't trust, verify, that ironically leads to, you can trust everyone now, because we know that we're doing our verification, so we are trustworthy, all of us, like, and that will lead to something completely different to what we're living in now. Like, I mean, try to imagine 50 generations down the line. Like, what does that even look like? Like, it's impossible to wrap your head around. And I think this is such a monumental shift in how human beings operate. Like, that we've only just barely scratched the surface of what this leads to, incentive wise, over generations. And I can see Lucas getting bored with my rant here.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure this is just your way of taking a break, right, Knut?
Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe. Oh, yeah. I should let you in, Luke. I've been ranting for a long time.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't mind. You're in your element today. This is nice.
But, oh no, I love it.
I mean, I don't think continuing this thread like this has been going. We partially did the thing where, like, you gave your really quick TLDR, but we didn't dig into like how you got into Bitcoin and like how you ended up building this business. I'm interested in that side of things. So can you go into that a little bit? How did this all start for you?
Yeah, finding Bitcoin like in 2013 was luck. Yeah, very, very interesting. And I didn't fully understand it for years. Probably still don't fully understand it. But went down this path of kind of trying to poke holes in Bitcoin, and then understanding that like cryptography makes sense like this, and money makes sense like this, and proof of work makes sense like this. And maybe I was lucky at the time. There was no FUD around Bitcoin. There was no news around Bitcoin. It was just it just existed. It was like $100. And it was on nobody's radar. And then moving into buying Bitcoin ATMs was my first venture into the space. I bought a Bitcoin ATM in Alberta. We were the first one in Alberta, which was cool. We were like, I think the second or the third in Canada, for one of the first in the world, and that was awesome. And so we built this ATM, or we bought this ATM, deployed it, started operating it, bought some more, and then before we knew it, we had whatever, 20 ATMs or whatever around Western Canada. But in that process, the the meme, it's like, what radicalized you? It was this process here of actually losing bank accounts. So I'm the most debanked man in the country. I've been banned from every single major bank in Canada. I've been banned from most credit unions in Alberta.
Respect.
Thank
Awesome.
you. And it was through that process, which was a couple years, where I realized my actions are always subject to the regime, my participation in the regime, and probably my political views. And that proved again to be true throughout, COVID and the horrificness that happened here in Canada. And so moving through this process of having a Bitcoin business and then being basically banished from the financial system that exists today, still having to pay taxes. There was this hilarious instance. So the provincial government and the federal government do not allow you to pay your taxes in cash, but I had no bank account. And so they were sending me late notice, and I was like at a loss. I was like, look, happy to pay you taxes, but like, give me a bank account. Like, I don't understand.
A bank account is really just a 2 out of 3 multisig between you, the bank, and the government.
100%. 100%.
Yes, and 2 out of those are in bed with one another. I mean, the
Yes.
bankers occasionally give Justin Castro casual blowjobs, but
Yes,
you do not, like, and therefore you like that. No, it's
this
so
is
bad.
a great way to explain it. A 2 of 3 with you, the bank, and the government. That is 100% what it is. And so yeah, there was I had to like pay my taxes in cash, and had to arrange this big ordeal and go to the building and do all the. It was brutal, and so it was through this process that I kind of realized how important self custody is, and the nature of Bitcoin ATMs, of course, is just already self custody focused, but understanding the importance of needing. Like I uniquely need to interact with the fiat system. You cannot buy a house in cash. You cannot buy a car in cash. You cannot pay your taxes in cash. Frankly, I can barely go down the street and buy a sandwich with cash. And so having that, work not in my favor led me to building what is now Bitcoin Well, which is effectively the conduit between Bitcoin and self-custody and the legacy financial system for as long as it's going to last. And I think that it's been a fun journey, like lots of learnings. I mean, even now we've got an error internally. So what happens is in Canada, as I'm sure Luke, you remember the e-transfer system, you log into your bank, you can send a transfer through this centralized system called Interac, and it goes from bank to bank anywhere in Canada. And we use this. So our customers log in, send us an Interac e-transfer, and then we send them Bitcoin. But the banks have started blocking Interac e-transfers to us. One of my friends texted me, he signed his mom up, and he's like, hey, it says that the contact denied the transaction. What are you guys doing? And I was like, nah, the bank blocked. He's like, no. I called the bank. They said they denied it. And or they said that you declined it. And I was like, look, if you have the time, go through this process with them. Here's the questions to ask. Here's the things you have to push on, and tell me what the answer is at the other side. He goes through 5 different people, 2 hours on the phone. And he says, at the end of it, they said, oh yeah, we actually did prevent this transaction from going through. We were lying to you, but this is for your protection. And it is shocking the attitude the banking system has towards Bitcoin. And so anyways, back to the error. Internally, we have an error that's called "fuck your bank," and that's the internal code for it. And when there's a certain code that happens the majority of the time when a bank blocks our transaction, and we have to send an email with like alternative ways to buy Bitcoin. We're a legal business. We're publicly traded in Canada and in the USA. We pay our taxes, and yet we cannot have a customer send us $100 because we're Bitcoin. And it's this is the Cobra effect playing out in they hide behind the guise that there's fraud in our industry, which is true. There is fraud in our industry. Having non-undoable money is a haven for fraud with stupid people. There's a lot of people that are going to be scammed that have just blindly been trusting the fiat system to protect them, and that protection is gone. And so there is going to be a turbulent window of time here where lots of people get scammed. But the response is not more governance. The governance created this problem. If we think that the bureaucrats are ever going to be smarter than the tiny free market scammers who have no morals and no laws, like, we're lying. It's showing up to a gunfight with a knife. You don't have the same tools. And so, yeah, anyways, all that to say, Bitcoin is that conduit from self-custody to fiat land, because we still need to live in fiat land. We had this other, I'm just on stories now, but you go ahead, Knut, if you got...
No, I just think of the analogy like with the bureaucrats being more like you're going into a nuclear war with a spork.
Literally, like, you've got a close range weapon in a global battle. Like, what are you going to be doing? There was this one instance, and this goes to show you just how either uninformed or malicious this whole system is. My wife needed a new vehicle. We have another kid, so let's go to the car dealership. We pick up the right one. All right, great. I tell them, look, I'm paying in cash. They're like, no problem. You sure you don't want to finance it? I don't want to finance it. I'm paying in cash. Okay, let's go. So we order the car, make my deposit in like cash, like in dollar bills. And then a few weeks later, the car shows up. We go to pick it up. I got my backpack, and I'm like, all right. They're like, well, let's pay. I got my backpack. I'm like, whoa, what are you doing? And I was like, paying you in cash. And they're like, whoa, well, we thought you meant a check. And I was like, would have said check if I meant check. I said cash. And I paid you in cash for the deposit. They're like, okay, well, we have to take this cash, give it to the police. The police will investigate it for 10 business days. And then once it's clean, we'll give it, then you can come pick up the car. And I was like, no. There's no way. And by the way, previously to that, the police had seized about $10,000 from one of our Bitcoin ATMs that I spent 2.5 years in court fighting them to get back. And so this is I think this is only 5 or 6 months after the police had seized that. So I'm hyper skeptical of this. And so obviously I said no, and then we just had to work out other systems. But it is shocking how the system works in this way.
No, and I know, like, I needed to withdraw a large amount of cash from a bank account here in connected to my house deal. Let's just say that and not go into details. But I needed some of my money. That's the point. And the bank asks me what I need the money for, and I'm like, what the fuck do you need the money for? It's my money.
Yeah.
I'm paying you to store it for me, right? Like,
and here's the scary thing is that I've had this discussion with left-leaning communists, to be polite, and they often say, well, it's for your protection. It's for the greater good, blah, blah, blah. And I think that this is probably the most heinous and difficult to understand lie that we've been told, because if you tell everyone that they are in danger, then you get to you have this ability to be the savior. And we have been tricked into thinking we are in danger for so long that people are now applauding when your money gets held back. It's this most battered wife syndrome situation.
No, but this is the oldest scam in the universe,
Yes.
or in human civilization anyway. Like that you need protection from something. This is what the mafia uses all the time. They'll sell you insurance against what they will do to you if you don't pay for the insurance. It's like, why would I need a savior? You need a savior from what we will do to you if you don't buy our savior. What do I need protection from? You need protection from whatever we feel that we need to do to you if you don't do what we tell you to do. So it's the greatest lie ever told. And
Yes.
Yeah, and all of these problems with when you think about them, and everyone who doesn't understand Bitcoin says like, no, it's unusable because I can't use my fiat to do this and that. But once you're in Bitcoin, all the friction is gone. Like it works flawlessly, 24/7. Like TikTok next block, nothing is like everything's predictable, everything's smooth, everything's like exactly as it should be, and you get an occasional fee spike every once in a while when a scammer comes along and tries to pull a fiat scam on someone else. But that's basically it. That's also a problem with fiat affecting Bitcoin. So
Yes,
like it's all fiat's fault. It's never Bitcoin's fault.
If we weren't we do a lot of work to prevent fraud, and the number one start of a fraud case is I'm trying to preserve my wealth. This is the natural state of our world where they have a small amount of savings that is no longer cutting it, will no longer cut it in the future. And someone tricks them into thinking they can guarantee 20%, 30%, outpace inflation, whatever it's going to be. With money that does that by default, all of those scams disappear. They become non-existent. We no longer need to gamble our savings, our value, our futures in order to just simply survive, because we've got money that actually does the work in preserving the value, which is, I think, again, another societal shift that will occur, and inherently, incentives then realign, and we've got a better opportunity to I think, to thrive as humanity.
Yeah, the winning move in fiat land is to not play at all. That's
Totally.
it. And we had it in us all along. It's like
and I had this conversation.
we just needed Bitcoin to tell us that we had it in us all along.
Yes, and investing is like such an interesting thought process of, I worked very hard and received this money. This money sucks so bad that I'm going to go now give the money to somebody else so that I can have a chance to have a better future, or not even a better future, just to maintain, so I can have the same future that I have right now. And it's such an interesting concept that really only needs to exist when you've got manipulated fiat.
Yeah, and investments, when you have a Bitcoin stack, it needs to be thought through. Like, is this going to make me more money than just sitting on this pile of Bitcoin and doing fuck all?
So I actually might disagree with that. I think that investing on a Bitcoin standard will transition from a way to get rich and it will change into a way to improve your life or the lives of people that care about. We're going to become mission-focused investors in the future. And will actually, I think, look a lot more like philanthropic activity than it will look like getting an ROI in monetary sense. And here's an example of what go ahead, Knut. What were you thinking?
No, you go ahead.
So example of that, my kids and I went to a camp, a family Bible camp over the summer, and it was dynamite. 10 out of 10. They're talking about generational faith. They're talking about growing adults or growing children into adults that like love the Lord, but also like, want to move society in a positive direction, and very, very positive move. And I start looking around, my like serial entrepreneur brain, and I'm like, well, this sucks. This could be better. This could do more, blah, 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 blah. And, I didn't act on any of this information, but I started thinking like, oh, what would it look like for, if I were to start a camp like this or invest in a camp like this? Well, their structure is not for profit. So then I started thinking, what would the benefit be? What if I committed, X number of dollars or X number of sats to a project like this? What would that look like over the next period of time? And time again, it looked like a horrible monetary investment. You cannot get around that in any way, shape, or form. However, I am still incredibly drawn to push our world in such a way that does empower, the next generation to be like bold and love the Lord. And so I really do. This got me on this track of like, well, what does investing look like in the future of a Bitcoin standard? Why would anyone invest? And it has to be about more than money. when you are so secure in your future and you're so confident that your savings will yield generations of progress, then you have the ability to kind of fast track society in a direction based on, you know, a spend or an effort.
Here's an Austrian perspective on that, and that is that that was always the case. Like an investment, like money is just a part of the equation. But people do stuff. People want money because of the stuff that money will buy them,
Right.
and not money because of the money itself. So like there are more things at play in what we value than simple financial gains. Like
I like that.
We do things for our families rather than like I'd rather buy a Christmas present for my son than for some other fucking kid on the street. Like it's pretty pretty simple like that. So but the thing I see, like if you just fast track to when there's no more Satoshis to be mined, they're all in circulation. By the way, money is never in circulation, but it always belongs to someone at some point. But you get the expression. So at that point, the only way to survive is either doing goods or services or using something else than Bitcoin, or to diminish your stack slowly over time, which still can increase in purchasing power over time. This is the magic of deflation. But what an investment can do is that it can change the derivative, like the vector, the angle of the decline to be a little less steep.
Yeah.
So that's that you might start a company not to have black numbers, but to have like the angle of the decline of your stack be a little less steep. So which
but also
what this does is that it removes all the zombie companies of the world.
Yes.
Like, because right now companies are started for bullshit everywhere, and they don't make money, and when they go bankrupt, there is no punishment, no what's the word I'm looking for? The punishment for the people doing the bad investment is not, it doesn't suffice. It's not enough. Like they're not getting what they deserve, so they can keep on doing stupid things over and over again and never learn their lesson. That is simply not possible on Bitcoin.
Yeah, 100%. They're almost forced to make those bad investments. They're not playing they're playing a game whereby you don't need everything to win. You just need one. And like, especially on the VC track, which is inherently fiat. And I think that, you know, I look at these big companies with all this cash. Like I look at Apple's a great example with this car recently. They piled billions of dollars into this car project and then just wiped it, like just scrap. And what that means is probably they were forcing things, and they didn't necessarily have the market signals to bring that, but they just thought, well, this cash is deteriorating. What are we going to do with it?
Effect. It's the Cantillon effect in play. They can afford to be wasteful because there's no cost to being wasteful. In fact, it's better for them to be wasteful.
Better to be wasteful.
It's awful.
Yeah, it is. It's terrible, man. It's it's challenging. It's a challenging spot.
Yeah, and like I guess kind of speaking of the challenges, I mean, right now Canada, Alberta are both interesting places to operate. Alberta is an interesting place to operate. And what's coming up for you? Like what are you aiming to do right now as you're going forward here?
Yeah, so we're looking at Bitcoin Well. Very, very excited to make Canada and US kind of facilitate that conduit here. But more broadly, my wife and I over the last probably 12, 18 months had this kind of major decision. Are we going to stay or go? And we went through this exercise, this thought process of, you know, are we happy here? Well, no, not really. What are the pros and cons? And then, you know, more cons, but then it's like, well, where do we go? And everywhere is kind of subject to the same fiatness that Canada is, some a little bit less, some seeming on the mend. But all in all, life gets at best marginally better than if we were to leave, and we'd lose all of our our community, and that whole the family, the friendships. Like, I grew up in the city that we live in still. My kids, although we are yanking the kids out of school, my kids go to the same school that I went to. We play hockey. Like, we've got a really strong community in this city, in this country. And so about 6 months ago, we kind of made the decision to stay, but then take action towards, making it a better place. And so kind of cementing Bitcoin well, here in North America, specifically making, Canada and USA, having that conduit between self-custody and legacy financial system. I do believe that my kids will grow up in a world where they can just have a Bitcoin well account. They will not need a bank account. They'll be able to send wire transfers and buy a house and do all the things that they need to do with the fiat world. But the majority of their income and the majority of or all of their savings should be in self-custody. And so, as far as what's next, it's that, I think that paycheck interaction, something deeply personal and powerful about getting, sending your paycheck and knowing a portion or all of it is turning into Bitcoin. That is very good raw value. And there's so much opportunity that we have on top of that. We can start paying people early. We can give people Bitcoin exposure. Like there's opportunity that exists here. So all that to say, what's next is just continuing on the path. We are very excited about these cash accounts, giving people the ability to deposit paychecks, receive Bitcoin in self-custody. Also, this kind of solves our Bitcoin bank issue, right? It's like stupid banks, like, well, don't send money to those people. We don't want them to have it. It's like, okay, great. Then we'll just take the money first and then give you what's left over. Like, this is the Cobra effect in real time. Like, banks are losing customers because they will not let their customers do what they want with their money. And they've been too big to fail for so long. Some incredibly supernatural force in Bitcoin comes along and completely disrupts their entire being and their entire business. And I think that we're going to be in better shape because of it. But so the next little bit, I'm working right now. We developed a swap. So we obviously send, hundreds of transactions a day on chain. And part of the benefits there is that we can swap transactions. And so we made a Lightning to chain and a chain to Lightning swap tool where you can send Lightning and receive Bitcoin on chain, like for free. So no fee and no miner fee even. You see, if you send 1 million sats on Lightning, you get 1 million sats on chain. And I want to open that up worldwide. So investigating, all the fiatness that is included in that. My wife has given me pretty strict don't go to jail rules. That's the sole rule that I live behind, or that I live by. And so abiding by the don't go to jail rule forces me to be relatively aware of the compliance in other jurisdictions. And so currently going through that process. But what that means for us is, first of all, we get to give the world the ability to stack on Lightning and then store on chain. And that's probably the future for the short term. Stacking in an L2 secondary chain where you are giving up custody rights, like with either Liquid or Lightning, you're giving up custody rights. Frankly, you can run a node and have channels. No one does that. It is the delta between that and custody is so big. I believe it's like, I guess personally I do that. But I don't believe the majority of our customers will do that. And so that said, stacking on chain in a self-custody environment is getting quite punitive, or it could become quite punitive with UTXO management. And so stacking in Lightning in some kind of layer 2, moving it on chain to store feels like the appropriate intermediary right now. And giving that to the world is very important. And then for us, we get to kind of identify, hey, we've got a pocket of users in Brazil. Why don't we go and start deploying fiat services in Brazil or Mexico or whatever, Sweden, Finland, mind you, your jurisdiction is crazy for laws and compliance. So maybe not, but we'll see.
No, but I got the fuck out of Sweden because of that and other things.
Yes, it's it's crazy.
It's a nightmare.
That's it. Europe has like all of it, kind of its own suite of services and providers and stuff. We actually don't talk to, I think, the North American side that often. So great to hear your perspective. Great to see what you're doing. I mean, like our touch points with Canadian Bitcoiners over the last few months. Everyone's awesome. I mean, we've talked to Ben Sessions. I know it's Ben Perrin. I keep calling him just BTC Sessions. We talked to him.
Sessions, Mr. Sessions.
Mr. Sessions, Dave Bradley. Like all the Canadian community is just absolutely fantastic. The Alberta community is fantastic.
Greg,
yes, exactly. To
mention a few, Francis.
Exactly. And so awesome to see what you're doing, and looking forward to seeing everything that is coming up with Bitcoin Well. So Adam, was there anything else you wanted to touch on that we haven't already covered?
No, man, this is great. You guys crushed it. It's always fun driving down the philosophical rabbit hole of Bitcoin. And, Bitcoiners get a lot of flack for saying Bitcoin fixes this. But when you run down the logic train, Bitcoin fixes a lot of things.
Absolutely. Almost everything.
Almost everything, man. And it is really remarkable that we get to live in a time to contribute to that. Like you guys with your show, what we get to do at Bitcoin Well. I just think about, and there's a chance that we don't get any credit, which is fine. I don't know who made the first printing press, but I know it was pretty damn important for the future of democracy.
Gutenberg.
Was it? Okay. So yeah, I think it's cool. I think it's great that we get to communicate, and I think it's great that we get to contribute to what the future of Bitcoin will be. So yeah, hats off to you guys. Thanks so much for having me, and looking forward to another chat soon.
Yeah, final thought. Did you know that you can mix like milk, sugar, eggs, and butter and store your Bitcoin in that?
No,
with a vanilla extract.
Give me this. How do you do that?
It's called self-custody.
Okay. I will accept that, and I will go try it. It sounds just like eggnog to me, but
depends on how you mix.
okay.
Like if you use wasabi or not. Like all right, anywhere you want to send our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, certainly go to bitcoinwell.com. We're going to be, like I said, that Suave tool, I'm working very hard to get this. I want this live. And so go to bitcoinwell.com, make an account, and then do nothing. And we'll, when it's live, it'll be live. But also, like on Twitter, you can get me at Adam O'Brien _, or on Primal or on Nostr, sorry. You can get me, I'm a NIPO 5 maxi, meaning I'm not going to sit here and rattle off my NPub, but I am going to give you my NIPO 5 verification, which is just Adam at btcw.app. So BTCW is the shorthand for Bitcoin Well.app. That's my NIPO 5 verification. If you search that in any Nostr client, you'll likely see me. And follow me there. Would love to connect with more Bitcoiners, especially, international Bitcoiners are great because my family and I might show up looking for a place to stay one day, and then we'll have some fun.
Thank you very much, Adam. This has been a great conversation. I enjoyed it a lot, and we'll keep in touch.
Awesome. Thanks,
Good luck
guys.
with
Take care.
everything.
Yep. Thanks a lot, Adam. Take care.